starting with the Daily Graphic. So the Daily Graphic says, "We say no. Giba kicks against Star Times digital TV deal." That story is on page 3. Withholding VAT, not new tax. Accountant General assures public. That story is on page 16. Builds bridges of reconciliation. President tells new UEWVC. And that story is also on page 16 of the Daily Graphic.
Now straight to the Ghanaian Times this morning. It says, Chiefs remains bent. 1 killed in clashes at Sege. The full story is on page 17. Really sad story there, if you read it. GES Solution Center receives 600 free SHS placement complaints. And page 17 also has that story. And finally, at the induction ceremony at UEW, let's build bridges. President urges new Vice Chancellor. Full story on page 16 this morning.
Okay, now let's take a look at the Finder. The Finder says, President backs teacher licensure exams, calls for reconciliation at University of Education, Winneba. That story is on page 8. Government hails credit rating upgrade. That story is on page 4. NIB donates math books worth 80,000 Ghana cedis to the Education Ministry. That's an amazing story. And that story is on page 10. SHS 3 students who hid gun in his luggage arrested. That story is on page 4. And finally, tuition yet to take off in some SHSs. That story is also on page 2 of the Finder.
Now straight to the New Crusading Guide. It says MPP set to cripple NDC. Party gurus bankrolling opposition aspirants. And also MP chases T-Road thief. It's a really sad story there. Yeah. The full story is on pages 3 and 10 this morning of the New Crusading Guide. Afenia East residents agitate over poor construction of rail tunnel. Double track system, brilliant and innovative. This is coming from the president and the Mankesim Paramount Chief himself, as he interacted with the president on this particular occasion. And also, Akufo-Addo charges new UEW Vice Chancellor to promote reconciliation.
Okay, now let's take a look at the Daily Statesman. 300,000 Ghanaians to go blind. Ghana Health Service. That story is on page 3. That's a terrible one. I mean, can you imagine 300,000 of us going blind? Ghana Water Company Limited saves the nation $7 million, but can't salvage NDC Teshi Water Plant rip-off. And finally, new UEWVC takes office. That story is on page 2, and the president charges him to promote reconciliation.
Now the Chronicle says GRA big shots deployed at the ports. There's the @ sign over there. So GRA big shots deployed at the ports, taxed to rake in 7.7 billion in the last quarter of the year. Kofi Inti leads crusade with a target of over 500 million Ghana cedis. So we wish them all the best in respect of same. Catholic priest takes over UEW as VC, and there's a beautiful picture here of President Akufo-Addo with the new Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba. So that's what we have on the front page of the Chronicle, and of course contained therein.
Okay, let's take a look at some.
Sorry, before you go to the online stories, so let me just look at the Today newspaper really briefly. More to go blind. GHS warns. That's on page 2 of the Today newspaper today. And also, men's gold saga. SEC replies critics. We'll take a look at that story shortly. Atuguba accuses government of circumventing justice in UEWVC case. So that's what we have also on the front page of the Today newspaper. And
it looks like we also have the custodian with us. S&P backs Baumia on robust economy. Read that story is on page 3 of the custodian. Chief's corpse set ablaze. Mourner killed over burial space. That story is on page 2. NDC to lock out Mahama from 2020 flag bearer race. And that story is also on page 3 of The Custodian.
Fantastic. Now, some online stories?
Yes, we have a few online stories that I want us to look at, starting with politicians have failed to cushion customers from fuel price hikes. That's coming from Senor Hosi, and I'm reading from citynewsroom.com. Don't jubilate yet over B rating. Fifikwete predicts doom ahead. Drivers lament over fuel cost at 5 Ghana cedis per litre. And SMP's B rating doesn't change hardship in Ghana. That's coming from Kwache Ofosu. And finally, Professor Aful Bruni inducted as new UEWVC despite raging controversy.
Wonderful. Now, we are joined in the studio by Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini. He's a member of Parliament for Tamale North. Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Daily.
Good morning, and thank you for
How are you?
Terrific. How about you?
I'm okay. We're both okay.
Yeah. We're also expecting Amoako who shall be joining us shortly. He's a senior member of the NPP communications team as it stands now. We'll start off with a story from citynewsroom.com. Drivers lament over fuel price increase, or lament over fuel cost at 5 Ghana cedis per litre. So that appears to be how it stands right now at the fuel pumps, 5 Ghana cedis per litre. Now, to join us, of course, still the hashtag Breakfast Daily on all social media platforms, and not forgetting the WhatsApp line.
The WhatsApp line is 050-585-832. 050-585-832.
I think it's 0550. You said 050.
Okay, 0550.
Let people send it to Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini tonight.
Okay, 0550-585-832, and the hashtag is Breakfast Daily. Okay, so let us know your thoughts on the topics that we will be discussing. We'll start off with the fuel price hikes and then move on to the Ghana credit ratings. We touched on that earlier yesterday, but we've received some feedback from some of our policymakers, so we'll touch on that again.
Wonderful. Now, drivers lament over fuel cost at 5 Ghana cedis per litre, and the story on citynewsroom.com says some drivers have expressed their displeasure over the increase in fuel prices for the second pricing window in September. And checks by City Business News at some fuel pumps on Monday evening showed that Shell had increased its prices, and a litre of diesel and petrol are being sold at 5 cedis 18 pesos and 5 cedis 14 pesos respectively. So diesel is 5.18, and of course regular petrol, or what we call super, is always selling at 5 cedis 14 pesos. So generally on issues of fuel pricing as it stands now, Honorable Suhuyini.
And before you speak, let me share some frustrations we heard from some of the drivers. I'm going to quote them. One driver said, "I am a taxi driver and I work on commission. For this increase in price, I am wondering how much I can afford and how I would translate it into possible increase in transport fares." Another one said, "Fuel prices obviously affect every product that we buy, be it gari or sugar, but a lot of people seem to be quiet about it. Even the media houses, a lot of them do not talk about it. So obviously, we're all affected by it. If fuel prices go up, whatever you buy in the streets, it's also going to affect your pockets."
Well, thank you very much. Once again, let me say good morning to our viewers. I think that I like the last quote from that driver in relation to how it seems all of a sudden Ghanaians have become very tolerant and acceptable of increases in fuel prices, judging from the noise that is made about it and what was made about it, even when it was less than 4 cedis. So I think the taxi driver is right when he says that nobody seemed to be talking and the media is not, highlighting it as much as he would have wished the media to do because of obviously what he witnessed some time ago. So it is true that whoever you are, wherever you operate, and whatever you engage in, fuel prices have an impact on you. And I think it is the reason why governments over the years have found it necessary to maintain some level of taxes in the price build-up of fuel prices, because it is the surest way of getting revenue. It's the surest way of ensuring that every Ghanaian contributes to the national, growth. But when you look at the fact that we are paying more than $1 now, I think there was initially a race between the dollar and then the fuel price as to which one will cross the 5 CD mark. Now the fuel has beaten the dollar, even though it's still head to head, and it has crossed that mark. And I think it is simply unthinkable that we are paying more than $1 for just a liter of petrol. We're not talking about a gallon of petrol. I mean, in the past we used to talk about how do you pay, almost $1 for a gallon of petrol. Now we are talking about more than $1 for just a liter. It cannot be good news. It can certainly not be good news. It is understandable, I mean, when explanations are given about the, world market prices and other factors determining the increase that we are experiencing in this country. But, it is understandable, but not acceptable, I should say. It's understandable when those things are given. But it is not acceptable because of the history of the discussion around fuel price increases. There was one theory. It was increasing because of incompetence. It was increasing because of insensitivity. That was the theory. Nothing beyond that, was seen to be acceptable or reasonable. So when you have the people who propounded this theory in charge, you don't expect increases. Unless, of course, they also want to continue with the insensitivity and the incompetence. So that is why it is understandable when you listen to the explanations of world market forces and other reasons why it is increasing. It is understandable because that may be the truth. But it is unacceptable because the people who are offering these explanations rejected those explanations in the past and assigned the increments to just incompetence and insensitivity. So if they are in charge and it is happening, it's ridiculous. It's dishonest to give the same reasons that you rejected and claim you are not insensitive and claim you are not incompetent. But let's look at the broader, picture of the pricing formula. The NDC, when we're in government, introduced a number of taxes, like the ESLA and the stabilization levy. Now, these were introduced at a time that world market prices were low. But a government that was visionary knew that this was not going to be low forever. So a stabilization levy was introduced to cushion consumers in times like this. When the prices are up, then whatever windfall you would have gotten from the stabilization levy will be used to cushion the impact on the average consumer. Now, demonstrations were held across the country by our colleagues who are in government today against the introduction of that levy. They called it insensitive. They said it was reckless. Now, they are incidentally the beneficiaries of that stabilization levy. They have over the years benefited from it. And I recall MPA, I think it was last December, making a meal out of how they were able to maintain prices, even though there was the opportunity to increase as a result of the stabilization levy that they were using. So they were beneficiaries of that, even though they kicked against it. Now, as we speak, the prices are at its peak. And so we feel that there is no need to maintain that levy in the price buildup, because that levy was for a purpose. Prices were low in the world market. We were just, keeping it there to make a windfall and cushion Ghanaians. If prices are high, you don't maintain that levy. So for us, we are saying it has outlived its usefulness. And if that is taken from the price buildup, you will see a reduction. Then the energy sector levy, which they criticized and demonstrated against, today, unfortunately, they have actually used it as collateral to go for a loan that has extended the period or the duration of the tax. I am sure maybe in 2-3 years' time, the tax would have also outlived its usefulness if the NDC were still the managers. But now you're talking about 15 years. So because it is now even collateral, I wonder if they can do anything about it. Maybe they can reduce it. But even if they reduce it, it's going to affect the projections that they use in order to attract whatever funding that they got as a result of that energy sector, levy fund. So I'm saying that as Ghanaians, it is not comfortable. It is not pleasant that we have to pay this much for fuel. But like the taxi driver said, it is ironic that even though we are uncomfortable with it, we tend to be more tolerant of it than we were in the past.
I think you're overquoting the taxi driver respectfully. And I also want us to not politicize this issue.
It just makes sense. It's not about politics. You see, I continue to say here, and I've said it on this platform, and I'll continue to say it, that politics is meaningless if it does not lead to the betterment of lives.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the conditions before, the conditions that were promised, and the conditions that are, being lived or experienced today, it's not doing politics.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll come back to you.
We'll come back to you,
Eric.
Eric, we're discussing the fuel prices, as you probably already know. Drivers are lamenting over the fuel cost, which is now 5 Ghana cedis per litre. And the driver that the Honourable is referring to is we talked to a couple of drivers, and one of them said fuel prices obviously affect every product that we buy, be it gari or sugar, but a lot of people seem to be quiet about it. Even the media houses, a lot of them have not talked about it. So we actually want to understand what's going on. Why does it seem like the fuel prices are so high?
And he made really fantastic points with the stabilization levy and the like. So if the fuel price is already high, why maintain that particular levy?
Well, good morning to yourselves. Apologies for turning up a bit late. I think yesterday and today it looks like the forces were against me coming here. But and good morning to Suhuyini. I think that for the issue of fuel prices, if I can recall, even as a kid, when the budget was being read, I think that I saw Dr. Kwesi Botwe as finance minister for a very long time. And even as a little child, when the budget was being read, you would hear him mention the new price increases in fuel and all sorts of things. And that also had its own problems. I think that as a people, we've had issues where we've had to actually queue for fuel and all the chaos that emanated from that. So we made up our minds to deregulate the sector and allow the exigencies of the market to dictate so that we don't go into that sort of situation again. Of course, we've also, over the period, had relationships with our financial partners in terms of the global Bretton Woods institutions and all of those other institutions where government subsidies on fuel. And I'm sure some people would even argue that at a point, whilst we're saying that the government was subsidizing fuel, we actually were not. And as we speak, in the instance where we were even subsidizing fuel, the BDCs are still claiming that government actually owes them money. So we've come a very long way, and I think that you would also empathize with people who would buy fuel. I buy fuel, you do, and it does not actually have any distinction in terms of who you are, regardless if you're MPP or NDC. So you empathize with the average Ghanaian in terms of how the prices have gone up. But, I mean, I keep asking myself, do we have a better way to deal with this thing? In the ideal situation where we have an economy that is robust enough and the issue to do with the depreciation of the cedi, for instance, which has been something that we've grappled with over a period, maybe we could be able to stem that. So I feel that, I mean, the call to deal with the elements that are under the purview of government. It's a conversation that can, of course, be had. And if it means the government or the managers of the economic management team would open up to conversations around how we'll be able to do that, so that we'll be able to, one, if you like, ameliorate the suffering of the masses in terms of the fuel prices and even the attendant price increases that we all know what happens. We can always have that conversation. But you see, I think that once we get a platform like this and some of these conversations come up, unfortunately, Jifa doesn't like when she says that I'm doing equalization. Then you have a challenge, because the challenge is that we've had the deregulation of our fuel or petrol sector for quite a while. And I can tell you that under the watch of the NDC, prices increase intermittently, and like it's doing now. And again, I mean, he made allusions to the fact that there are certain things that were said. I can point out to certain things that were said, are being said today, that would basically mean that we're trying to equalize. But the average Ghanaian or the ordinary Ghanaian out there, I believe strongly, is not interested in the back and forth between the MPP and the NDC. And again, as a government, the ordinary Ghanaian is also interested in finding solutions to their problems and all of those things. So I'm open to, and I'm sure that everybody out there will be open to a conversation around the elements in terms of the tax builder, for instance, and issues where there are specific things in there under the purview of government can be looked at, so that it will bring some kind of comfort to the people of this country.
Okay, so also in connection to that, the IES, as the Institute of Energy Security, have, well, more or less encouraged yesterday. They were telling government strongly that there are two things that necessarily should be removed: the special petroleum tax, especially, and the recovery levy, the price stabilization. These are the things they say they are proven to be ineffective over the period, and that should be removed.
I think that's in line with me, what I was saying, that we can continue to have this conversation. Apart from that, I think that the bigger picture, or even the bigger perspective, is that what are we doing with our crude, for instance? What are we doing with toll to start with? Over the last 10, 15 years or so, we've had issues with being able to actually use toll to be able to refine the crude. And if we're able to do so with the increasing number of crude that we're able to actually extract now, it should bring some kind of comfort. And so looking beyond one, arresting the exigencies in terms of depreciation of the CD or what pertains on the world market, I think that we need to start having a conversation around what are the long-term strategic things to be able to do. And I believe strongly that this conversation needs to be had probably yesterday, in terms of how are we able to take advantage of the fact that as we speak today, we are even actually a net exporter of crude. Yeah. And what would we do? Are we going to maintain the status quo for the next 20, 30 years and still expose ourselves to buying finished products on the world markets? And that is some of the things that we need to do as a people. So for me, again, when you're in government, you're not here to give excuses. We need to find solutions and lasting solutions to some of these things, because, like I said, as a child, if you go back 15, 20, 30 years ago, I'm sure if they didn't have City FM then, we used to listen to...
Well, he wasn't even alive. Okay,
we used to listen to Talking Point. I used to watch Talking Point with my dad. And the same issues. And I, myself and Suhuyini, we are the younger generation of in terms of the political space. And I think that whilst we are there's a dichotomy in terms of orientation, where we want to go, I think that the people of this country, even generations to come, will not forgive us when 10, 15 down years the line, we'll still be having the same conversations that the folks before us were having on Talking Points.
I think we would all expect you guys to do something differently. Now, one person who's speaking on this topic is Senor Hosi, who is the CEO of the Chamber of Bulk and Oil Distributors. He's saying that the government, right? So he's actually saying politicians have failed to cushion consumers from fuel price hikes. And I'm just going to quote him. He's saying we should focus on mass transportation. You can't deal with petroleum prices as a country internationally, but what we can deal with is the impact it has on the people. So what kind of investment are we making in mass transportation? That came from him. We get it that during your days, people couldn't do it, but now you guys are the leaders. What's the way forward?
Well, I will address the issue of the way forward, but I want to largely agree with what my colleague on the panel said about discussions that were had in the past and discussions that are being had now, and why or how we should all get together to ensure that we find some solutions that will lead to such discussions not being conducted days after now. I want to largely agree with him, and it is, you know, in that agreement that I also want to reiterate the point that for us to have a conversation that will lead to solutions that are workable, we do not have to be shy about, you know, where the ideas are coming from and the school of thoughts or the ideologies that we belong to as we propose those ideas. It is only unacceptable when the ideas we propose are only grounded on sentiments, like we have had in the past, insensitive, incompetence. Well, let's not be shy about having that discussion. That is our history. That is where we have come from. And to what benefit, you know, has it given us? And I'm sure it is because of such discussions that the taxi driver, for example, is worried that he doesn't seem to be hearing much talk about it anymore. But yes, if we all agree that we have done this wrong to ourselves and we have hurt each other sometimes personally for no reason by tagging each other with tax that we don't have, now the way forward is for the average Ghanaian who at the end of the day will make a choice between the conversations that he hears. I mean, it is important that we have a conversation that will enable the Ghanaian to make a choice between those conversations, because at the end of the day, the Ghanaian politics is about choices.
Okay.
And
so
the person will have
I would want us to continue the conversation. I know you've defined politics a few
Yeah,
times.
I'm going there.
We will take a quick break and then you continue. Is that
Okay.
fine?
Good.
Okay, this is Breakfast Daily on CCTV. We're talking about the fuel price hikes. We'll be right back.
For regular news checks as they unfold. 2020 news, all day, all the time. Politics, sports, entertainment, business, and more. 2020 news. We bring you the world in 20 minutes.
And that's all the news in 20 minutes.
Every Thursday night on City TV, you're welcome to join women from different backgrounds and opinions as they weigh in on your relationship issues. Watch Sister Sister as the ladies get real with issues about love, marriage, betrayal, sex, dating, trust, finances, and more.
And his goals and aims and ambitions, including like marital life or children. You should know that from the beginning. And when you have a deep conversation, you should be able to sense the vibe or the energy, but you should have that conversation so that you know what you're going in for. And then you advise yourself upon what you want and what the person wants.
Join Jessica and her sisters for City TV's all-women talk show, Sister Sister, every Thursday at 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Breakfast Daily. Now, earlier we're talking about the fuel price and matters arising from it. It happens that, as it stands right now, 5 cities
Per liter. That's ridiculous.
I
mean, I know you like Gary, so that's going to be
it's going to affect everything.
But not necessarily. Because
it's funny. It would even affect rent.
Yeah,
rent will actually go up.
How are we going to survive
so
in this
unconnected,
country?
but then it's going to go up.
And people are leaving. They are crossing the seas to go find better lives elsewhere. And all these are... but
it's crazy. So let me just end the point I was making before we went off air. It's not being dramatic. It's actually painting the real picture.
No, but the point is that people have been migrating from Ghana from time immemorial.
Okay, that was a bit
16, 17.
That's all right. But you see, the point is that let's have a conversation that is, if you like, that is uplifting. I'm happy about the proposal by Senor Jose that we need to fix our public transport system. I mean, I was listening to another discussion a while ago about fuel prices, even in Africa. And Rwanda, which seems to be doing so well, comparatively, at least if you look at the literature, people think it is the new baby in Africa that should be emulated, actually charges more per liter than Ghana is currently charging. In fact, Rwanda is paying about 6 Ghana cedis comparatively per liter. But why is the impact not as much in Rwanda is because their public transport system is more effective than Ghana's public transport system. So one can choose to park his car and ride. And even the cutting of cargo goods, are done in such a way that the impact is not that much. So we need to, first of all, fix our transport system. And that is why, again, in that conversation, when you have a government that is improving your road sector and tooling your transport system like the STC and Metro Mass buses, the question of Naim we go chop shouldn't come in. Because in the long run, that is how the impact of things like petrol will be ameliorated. But when it is reduced to politics and say, now the roads we go chop, you can imagine the man hours people spent around the Circle interchange, which is just close by, in those days. And how easy it is now. Look, today when your producer called me, I told him I was going to be late because the traffic around the Dankwa Circle was so much that I didn't think I would make it. And it would have been worse if I was going to drive into the old Circle. But guess what? When I went past Nima, I spent less than a minute at Circle and I was here in time. One, productivity is improved because I'm here. Two, I saved fuel. So when politicians come and tell you now the roads you go chop, you should know that is a lie. They know that it is important, but they are simply using that. So it is about how aware we all are as citizens, even as we have this discussion. So we need to improve our road sector. We need to improve our public transport system. We need to also ensure that some of these levies that have proven not to be sustainable or impactful be removed, like the price stabilization levy, like the special petroleum tax, and the likes should be removed from it. Then we can also look at how to retool toll. In fact, there were efforts. We all know what has happened, and today where we are again. And you recall that relationship between Bost and Tor that put Tor back to work, and how that relationship today is no more, and the news that we continue to hear from especially Bost hasn't been pleasant. So it is in this discussion, when we are dispassionate, that we can find the solutions that will work and lend support to those solutions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next topic.
Yes.
Government hails credit rating upgrade. I'm reading from the Finder, page 4. So, Kojo Pon Nkrumah, who is the Information Minister designate, says, we consider it as an affirmation. By the way, the ratings went from B- to a B. We consider it as an affirmation of our submission that the economy of Ghana and its fundamentals are gradually getting better. This represents the first time in a decade that Ghana has been upgraded to B following the nation's initial negative revision as in December 2018, as well as a downgrade to B in September 2010. So he says that the government will continue efforts to further improve the fiscal position by improving our revenues, disciplining ourselves on expenditure, and ensuring that our deficit does not get out of hand. In spite of this, some people have come out to say we shouldn't celebrate yet.
Fifi Kwete and many other people.
And the likes have come out to say that we should not come out to celebrate it. And the average Ghanaian is also saying this doesn't reflect in my pockets. So help us understand exactly what this means.
Well, I mean, again, I think that we need to make up our minds if we would accept some of these international rating agencies, or even when it comes to other international indicators that are given to us, or even our own statistics. You know, so in one breath, another party can be able to use that to extol their stewardship of the country, and then when they are in opposition, they say no, they don't like any of these things. I've even heard my friends in the NDC use Transparency International, all sorts of things. They've used Standard & Poor's in the past. They've used all sorts of other things. They've even gone on.
Let's not politicize.
I'm not politicizing.
Let's focus on the importance. Our viewers would like to understand the macro version and the micro.
You're being unfair to me.
I'm sorry. Okay,
I'm developing a point.
Okay, sorry.
I've even heard some of my friends make references to Imani and other civil society organizations. That is fantastic. It's brilliant. But we need to make up our mind if we would use these things or not, or we will find our own, if you like, homegrown ratings and all of those things. But what is significant, and I believe is significant, is that, and nobody would be able to contest that, in the last 25 years or so, we have made strides as a country. Now, we need to bear in mind that we are still a lower middle income country. In certain aspects, developing, looking at the statistics and the data, or some fundamental things that need to be able to make the ordinary Ghanaian feel part of this whole improvement that we've had. We have some SDGs and all development goals and all of those things, which are key and important. But you can't take away from the fact that there are certain things that are happening in terms of even the indicators that points to an economy that's on the right trajectory. Now, when you delve deeper in terms of what is the makeup of this economy and all of those things, then you can come back with the arguments that maybe we're not creating enough jobs, or the various sectors that are actually improving. So, for instance, we have oil, and then we have some kind of increment in terms of our service sector and all of those things. What's meant to happen for us to have that meaningful impact in terms of what we keep saying, the money in my pocket, is to bring along the various other sectors. So we've been talking about agriculture for a long time. We're talking about manufacturing, industrializing for a very long time and all that. But we're on the right trajectory. We need to get the basics right. We need to be able to find lasting solutions for some of the challenges that we face as a people. But I mean, the Honorable Minister designate cannot be wrong to say that we're on the cusp of something brilliant. Now, I keep saying all the time, and I think that Suhuyini made allusions to the fact, politics is meant to create an environment so that if it doesn't affect the people positively, then it makes absolutely no sense for us to indulge in that. So that in itself is key. Now, for anybody to say that, oh, there are still challenges and that we are still facing issues that in this day and age in 2018 we shouldn't be facing, it can be true. And I believe strongly that there has to be an attempt to improve or affect social mobility in this country. Because what tends to happen is that even with a growing economy like that, what tends to happen most of the time is that there's a widening gap between those who have and those who don't. And that cannot be acceptable. That's why I like the conviction, the commitment of the president that let's have a certain spatial distribution of industry. Let's create a system where the average Ghanaian, regardless of where they are born, will have access to some second cycle education, So that we are bringing everybody along, we need to be able to tap into the human capital of this nation to be able to push that developmental agenda ahead. So for me, this is where we are. Again, when you take the various sectors, sector by sector, and look at the various indicators, it points to an economy that is on the up. But we still have challenges. There are certain things that we can do, and I believe strongly that we've paid lip service to for a very, very long time by finding a relationship between what we import in terms of if it's really necessary to import those things, and if we have a capacity or a commitment to produce those things here, because we have a comparative advantage and competitive advantage to do so, and do that. Take some radical positions. I mean, sometimes I don't want to express those views.
Your government did say that we will transform the economy from taxation to production.
Yes,
right?
but
so now we're not saying it anymore. We should be living it.
No, but we are not. We have done. If you want me to go out and list a plethora of things that we've done in terms of tax cuts and our tax orientation, all of this, it's there. Now, for instance, the 1D, 1F. As a policy, I don't know anybody who, in principle, would disagree with an attempt by any government to industrialize. If there are specific issues in terms of execution, we can have those conversations. But as we speak, recently when the president was in the central region, a couple of companies under the 1D, 1F has been commissioned, and some of them have actually started working. So for me, in principle, that is exactly what we want to do. We want to take advantage of the fact that we have arable land to increase productivity in the raw materials space, feed that should dovetail into a 1D, 1F policy, make sure that we have the right standards in place to be able to export and move forward. For the economy, as far as I'm concerned, is the right trajectory. The global landscape and the operators in the global market space are happy. The investor confidence is high. They are confident that this particular government, right, is taking this government in the right trajectory. And that basically explains why we're here.
Honorable Alhassan.
Now, I want to quote Fifi Kwete, the Honorable Fifi Kwete. He says, we tend to achieve, but we are unable to sustain because so many things really make it difficult for us to sustain. So I will say that it will not be much cause for too much celebration because we've seen even much higher performances such as B+ not too long ago. So he's cautioning us to not celebrate yet, but focus on sustaining the ratings.
Well, the platitudes, the sloganeering, and the subtle propaganda sometimes just makes you laugh. I know, Chifa, you guys don't seem to appreciate a discussion that calls it as it is. If it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it certainly is a duck.
Well, we
not appreciate it.
I don't even know what you're doing.
Yes,
we're discussing our economy. She is referring to.
Yes.
Stated that at the point. No, but I mean the thing is that
he didn't interrupt.
Yes.
But
I haven't even said anything.
Okay, we're discussing the credit ratings, and we want to focus on.
So
this is a macro level thing.
I take it that Suhuyini does not believe in those credit ratings.
No, he hasn't even responded.
Even though in the past they have used it
allowed him respond.
Please.
Honorable, kindly focus on the macro and the micro and how it affects us as Ghanaians.
That's where I'm going.
Thank you.
You see, in order for us to understand the effect on us as Ghanaians, we first of all have to strip it off the beautiful language. And that is why I'm saying the sloganeering, the platitudes and all of that. Look, you read the story and you are told this is the first time in a decade. Comparatively to what? Because the experts have told us that this particular rating is a surprise one, never done before. It's concentrated on monetary policy and not the usual fiscal, policy of debt to GDP ratio. So if you say this is the first time in a decade, comparatively to what? When this actually, according to the experts, is the first time this is done. This rating, this particular rating is done. In the past, The rating agencies usually rate debt to GDP ratio. They usually look at your ability to pay your debt. And then based on that, they give you a rating.
Yeah, but that is erroneous.
Now, in this
so what is the credit rating for the United States, for instance?
He allowed you to make your point.
No, but it's a conversation.
Please, yes,
when he finishes, you come in respectfully.
Please, thank you.
The experts are saying that this particular report concentrated on monetary policy. And the experts are asking the question as to even the impact or relevance of a good monetary policy on your ability to pay your debts. So when you say that this is the first time in 10 decades, it's sloganeering. It's
a decade, not 10 decades.
In a decade. It's slogan platitudes. It's propaganda. That's what it is. Because this is the first time this is being done. But the subtle propaganda is to compare it to a non-existent analysis in the past. And to confuse the whole discussion. And make it look like there's some better management that has happened in the last 10 years. That's what I'm saying. If you don't strip it off that beautiful, you know, I don't want to say beautiful lies, but that's how it seems like. You will not get the full picture. So we have a situation where the CD was under a lot of stress. Discussions or still under a lot of stress. Discussions were held around it. And all of a sudden, boom, you have for the first time a rating based on monetary policy. I don't want to doubt it, but like my brother said, countries and governments and people have different ways of dealing with these rating agencies. Some countries actually don't believe in some of the rating agencies because they also have their own issues of sometimes even morality and bribery and all that. So some countries don't even place premium on these rating agencies. Others do. I am indifferent personally. And over the years I have been. Because for me, the marking scheme should be about the lives of the poor Ghanaian. If a government official tells me that because a monetary policy rating shows B positive, and so Ghana is doing well, I will want it confirmed by the spare parts dealer at Abosokai. I will want it confirmed by the Makola woman, who is a trader. I will want it confirmed by the parent who is struggling to get the word into tertiary education. I want it confirmed by the taxi driver who is buying fuel this morning. For me, that is the relevance. That is why I am indifferent to these international rating agencies. But others think it is gospel. But even if you read the whole report that is being, you know, thrown about, we are told of a looming danger. And that is why perhaps Honorable Fifi says it is not Uhuru yet. Hold it. Hold your celebrations. Because the report talks about, a huge gap in revenue collection. And this morning, one of your stories talked about the GRA boss himself now going to the ports to help in the collection of revenue. About 2 billion gap as we speak is what the picture is. And so if that continues, we are told that by the end of the year, we may have a 4 billion deficit. Now that 4 billion hole means that many of the government projections will not be met in terms of deliverables. And that is going to further aggravate, you know, the already hard conditions that we find ourselves. So the report points to that and says that, you know, some measures have to be put in place.
But some measures have been put in place with the agreement with Mackenzie.
Which is another, you know, questionable arrangement. I mean, in this day and age, Ghanaians, we are not able to collect our revenue. We have to outsource it to a private entity that is not even Ghanaian. A private entity that is Nigerian. we in Ghana cannot collect.
We are not. McKinsey is not Nigerian.
Well, but they have,
we are not. We are not
and there's nothing wrong with doing your due diligence,
we've worked with consultants on various projects,
McKinsey,
and you did so
you see, if you
at the same time.
Let's try to not say they did this and we did that, right?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying that it is that because he reminded me of Mackenzie's arrangement, I think it is also insulting that we are unable to manage our economy. And if you recall, during the vetting of the Honorable Finance Minister, McKinsey came up. Sometimes I don't know why we don't follow these stories in the media. McKinsey, at the time that the Finance Minister was yet to be vetted by Parliament and approved, was already at the Finance Ministry working for him. And at the vetting, he was asked about McKinsey. And he admitted that they were having some arrangement. So, after handing over our finance ministry to that agency, we are handing over.
That's a bit of a stretch.
That's what it is.
No, we haven't handed over.
And there's nothing wrong with the ministry doing their due diligence.
Consultants at the Ministry of Finance when you were in power
to retool and do whatever.
Thank you.
So I'm saying that it is.
We have a few minutes for our but we do appreciate your strong comments about bringing McKinsey in as if we can't do this ourselves. Now let's take a look at our final story. Men's Gold Saga. Replies critics. Now I'm reading from page 3 of the Today newspaper. The Securities and Exchange Commission says its intention is not to destroy certain businesses. Instead, it's a statutory body mandated by the Securities Industry Act 929. And it will continue to protect investors and the interest of the general investing public from losing their hard-earned money in Ponzi schemes. Now, this, of course, is in response to this whole Men's Gold saga, where some Ghanaians are actually accusing. We've seen those social media. I stand with Namwan, I stand with Men's Gold, and the likes. So they have come out to say that, you know what, you're criticizing us, but then this is our job, this is our legal mandate. I'll start with you, Eric.
It's a very contentious issue, Men's Gold, and again, government has a responsibility also to protect the populace. Now, without trying to dissect exactly what Men's Gold does, and even looking at it from taking it from a cursory point of view, if the model that Men's Gold proposed to use is what actually it is, then I don't see why even Ghana as a country, especially when we mine a lot of gold, will not have been able to, as it were, make 10% gains every month on the gold that we have over the years. And that has to be delved into, you see. But you see, because it has almost like a parochial or subjective standpoint, where people have taken their monies there, and they are also getting this interest.
7 to 10%.
Trying to even speak reason in terms of trying to even delve into the operations properly and get to ascertain exactly what it is that they're saying is true becomes difficult because it's subjective. People feel that, well, if nothing has happened or nothing untoward has happened to their investment, then we should allow it to go. Forgetting that, I mean, when the issue crops up, government or state agencies that are mandated to regulate or make sure that this thing does not even happen. And so I believe strongly that the agencies are just being proactive. Maybe we should have dealt with it a long time ago. Fantastic. But it does not mean that we shouldn't delve into. And I really shudder when people use this position at all because it's a Ghanaian company, as a Ghanaian individual should allow it to go. And then you have 20, 30,000 people apparently who have had their investments there. And once it happens, it is against one individual. Yes, against one individual and 30,000 other people. So I believe strongly that there's no motivation on the part of government to unnecessarily destroy Ghanaian businesses. But you see, we have to be minded by the fact that this country is meant to be run by rules and regulations. And as an entity, an individual, or whatever, you need to follow the rules.
Thank you. just 1 minute.
I
We
wish we had time to discuss this extensively, but I will just say that I think that the regulators should be encouraged to do what is right, to apply the law. But in doing so, they must also be mindful of the how. Because sometimes the how is what leads to speculations about some ill motive or interest. I found a letter yesterday instructing importers who want to deal with bonds at the ports to deal with only enterprise insurance.
It's
and
not
stuff.
true. It's a fake.
You know,
I
hope so. I hope so. I hope so. And then I have seen a picture. This one is a fake of, you know, in fact, a picture around East Legon where Data Bank set up, you know, some kind of, I think, this shows that they do in front of one of the collapsed banks, you know, and you know, that's what I'm saying, the how. It may not be intended, but the how it is done makes people begin to wonder if there is some ill motive or some special unhealthy interest behind the scene. So, as for the regulators, if they are backed by law to do what they are doing, they must be encouraged. But even in carrying out the law, they must be mindful of the, you know, things they do that lend support to, you know, imaginations, however wild they are.
Thank you. And Dr. Addison has no connections to Data Bank.
Are you sure?
So we should point that out. But thank you very much.
But even when he was going by that Star and Enterprise, the Star Assurance is owned by Dr. Dufour, isn't it?
Okay.
I mean, isn't owned by Star Assurance? Is it not Dr. Dufour?
Thank you very much.
It's a fake story, and you need to take it from
there. Someone wants us to ask Eric. John Inungwa says, "Hi, Jifan. Well, can you please ask Eric who an ordinary Ghanaian is and his category, please, whether you consider yourself an ordinary Ghanaian?"
I am.
Yes, we all.
I am.
Another message here from Bilinto Abdal says, "Managers of the economy are talking much but doing little in ending the sufferings of Ghanaians, or in ending the sufferings that Ghanaians are now experiencing." And another message here from Walanyo in Nakwetia. He says, "Those who do not see the efforts of this competent government are the greedy NDC who only left Ghana in crisis. Ghana was a mess under previous administration. Sekufado is putting things in place to put the country back on track. Ghanaian students are benefiting from free SHS with regards to NSC Akumi." Okay, so we have seen your messages. We shall read more in the course of the program. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much, Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North.
We'll be right back.